Welcome to the Rock Guitar Confidential Podcast with Ryan and Scott. On today's episode, we contemplate the future of music retail and discuss items made for hobbyists. Up next. One signature move. You have multiple signature moves.
Well, I've been working on adding the atomic leg drop.
Oh, nice. Is that close to the atomic punk? Because it would be awesome if it was.
Yes, it would be.
Yep, that'd be awesome. All right, so what's funny is that is that when it comes to sports, I think it's weird. I find that musicians are really of two minds. I find that either they're way into sports or they are like completely ignorant to sports. It's a weird. I don't find too many people that are kind of casual sports fans and also musicians. At least that's not my experience. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, I grew up playing basketball. I love basketball. Right?
That makes sense. I played baseball and football and did martial arts when I was a kid. So that
oh, rad.
Yeah, but that's too short.
So you are a UFC
I'm
fan.
too short of a dude to play basketball. Like I could just get blocked every time I go to the hole.
Yeah, unfortunately, my knee joints have always been made out of cardboard, bubble gum, and Scotch tape.
I heard that was really in back in the 90s, though.
Yeah, well, back in the 80s, we were banking on space age polymers.
Yes, you're going to become the guy, the $6 million man, or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Well,
we can rebuild his knees. They'll be better, stronger,
right.
faster.
So these days, the $6 million man would be like the $6,000 man.
$6 million is insane.
Yeah. Oh man, Austin Powers sure made it to the inflation jokes.
It's really funny.
They were, Mike Myers was early to the party on $1 million.
But in terms of like sports fans, as far as musicians that do you know a lot? I mean, I'm a big sports fan, but other musicians? I don't really hardly know any other than you. It's really in the basketball. I don't really know too many other sports fans or too many musicians that are huge sports fans.
Yeah, it's funny. So just like off the top of my head. I mean, I know I've had music friends that, so most of my friends are music people. So
yes, made of music.
They're made of music.
Yeah, fashioned from music.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, on the quantum level.
Exactly. Makes sense.
Yes.
Lots of 16th notes in there.
And 30-second notes.
Mostly rest, unfortunately, because it's all empty space.
Right. I mean? Yes, we're mostly made up of rest.
It's true. Exactly.
Yeah.
Most atoms are indeed made of rests.
Right. Yes. Rests, yes.
You got to pay attention too. Like if you have like those 32 bars of rest, you got to really pay attention. Like when that comes in, you know what I mean?
That's the thing. As you get older, you lose track of like how many repetitions.
Yeah, that's true. And you just don't care at some point. You just walk.
At some point,
where did he go? Like, I just walked out.
He just blew past the repeat symbol.
Had nothing to do.
Yeah,
whatever. It's like,
he had Dakota.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I find that there's not a lot of I talk to people who are big sports fans. Usually they're like totally ignorant of music. And when I talk to musicians, I really find it's either they're really into sports or they don't care at all.
Oh, well, okay. I think the stereotype is that if you're a music person, then you are not a sports person, like jocks versus nerds.
Yeah. I mean, I guess so. But we're not talking about playing sports. We're not like being fans of if you're a fan of the 49ers or something like that. I think that's all walks of life.
Yeah, well,
I don't think Jim, the middle management guy, had dreams of playing free safety for the 49ers or something. Maybe he did. I don't know.
Who knows? But yeah, I've got a buddy at Skips. Our yearly tradition is called Kings and Wings.
No, nice. So it's where you go and
where we watch the Kings and eat chicken wings.
That sounds like I should have gotten that.
Yes, that's my buddy Jake over at Skips Music. If you're listening, you should go buy a guitar from him.
And up until very recently, that was actually really a sad experience because I had to watch the Kings. You know what I mean? It's kind of until the last couple of years, and the Kings started kicking ass.
And see, here's why the tradition is so expertly designed. It's never a sad experience eating chicken wings.
But the basketball part of it can be kind of sad.
Well, right. So we're hedging our bets against the basketball.
All right. We're only down by 25 in the second quarter.
With chicken wings.
We can come back. You know what I mean?
But at least there's wings.
That's true.
See how that works?
So it kind of eases the pain a little bit.
Right. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely, man.
Just like paying $25 for a hot dog at a baseball game.
Right. Well, the wings aren't cheap, but
your worry over how you're going to afford this can kind of overlap the, oh my God, the King's losing. Really
right.
bad.
You don't have to get same as cash financing for your beer.
Yeah. Exactly. I took my son to a Kings game recently too, and
he had to get financing.
No,
for
I
his
remember
beer?
it was you walk into that scenario just expecting this is going to be. Okay,
he just walked right up and ordered a beer.
You want a hamburger? My son's 13. He's not getting a beer.
Well, I said, he just walked right. That's what I was.
And also, I don't drink, so it's one of those things like we just had sodas and also a vegetarian too. So I'm like, okay. So I got him the wings and I got whatever it is, But you walk into that sports stadium realizing, okay, it's going to be very expensive for everything. I want a soda. It's me $6 at least. You know what I mean? For if not more. You know what I mean?
So I mean, it's a similar vibe. Well, like a rock concert when everybody's in a large stadium and everybody's rooting for.
It's probably similar in the sense that the concessions are a big part of where the money for that team comes from. from. You know what I mean?
Right,
Outside
absolutely.
the TV contracts that they get from the league and stuff. But
Right. Well, I mean, if you had gone to see Kiss recently, then some of the money's coming from their pay-per-view.
yeah, who's buying the pay-per-view for Kiss? By the way?
Hey.
Oh wait, that's you. That's right.
That's
Sorry.
me.
I just don't. I mean, come on, man. Like I can see, like, okay, if it was a pay-per-view with Time Machine, you can go back in the Time Machine.
Okay, you know what? I'd rather watch, and I would rather have watched the last Kiss concert than like another 3 hours of The Office reruns.
Sure, that makes sense.
And I like The Office,
Yeah.
and it's fine to have on in the background.
Yep.
Misty does this thing where she'll actually, so like I'll go into the living room, and The Office will be on, right?
Yeah.
So I'll pick up the controller to change the channel, and the controller doesn't do anything.
It's like, no, I've decided this is what we're watching.
Right. This is one of the many ways that she, sabotages things on me in the house. Right.
It'd be awesome if she sabotaged it.
It would be awesome if I was just like, oh, dude, I see The Office, but it's Hall of the Mountain
Yeah,
King.
bam, 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 bam.
Yeah, totally, man. That would be rad.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
exactly.
Controller's broken.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That would be rad.
That would be rad.
Well, I mean,
Then you could make the Office go down even smoother.
I mean, if Hall of the Mountain King were on the Office soundtrack, I would not be changing the
Dude,
channel.
that'd be so awesome.
Or if Sabotage had written and performed the Office theme.
Yes. Which they could.
Yeah.
They still time. There's time for that. They
Dude,
could do
how
it.
many times have you had a student ask you to teach them how to play The Office?
Never have had one in my entire life. That's
Really?
good. Yeah. Nope.
I've had like
Most
a
of my
handful.
students are completely unaware of what The Office is.
Huh.
Yeah, the
Interesting.
vast majority of them are that. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's a self-selecting sample. Either I think I told you before. Like most of my students are either there's three camps. There's like the kids who don't care about music at all, but their friends are there because they make them go.
That must be a fun half hour.
There's like the teenagers who want to like shred, and then there's the adults who want to shred. That's basically that's like my student life right there. That's mostly what I've got. You know what I mean?
Nice.
And so I think that they all just
It's good makeup.
they get funneled to me because they know like, oh, you want to shred? Okay, let's go to this dude. You know what I mean?
Yes, got it.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, so the Office doesn't work its way in there at all.
So she does this thing, right? So I pick up the controller and I try to change the channel and nothing happens. That's because Misty's streaming The Office on Peacock,
Oh, okay.
which requires a different controller. I need to use the Roku controller.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
It's just that it never occurs to me that since The Office is already on 24 hours a day on Comedy Central,
That's true.
why would you then go to a streaming service and opt to watch it? Like again, I liked it the first time I watched it.
Well, maybe it's just that there's other stuff on Peacock that she likes to watch. And
No, she's just actively wanting to have The Office on.
Okay, well, that's
Which is-
it's almost like waterfalls in the background. You know what I mean? It's whatever works.
I guess
you know?
it's like people get like the green noise app,
Yeah,
and the
exactly.
white noise app. I suppose so.
Yep. You know what
She
I'll do?
says it's because they're the super fan extended editions, but at this point I know she's already seen all of those.
Yeah.
Maybe like at least 10 million times.
Well, you know what
So-
though? That what's something? What thing I'll do is actually I'll put on like YouTube. They have these like 6-hour videos of like rainforests and stuff like that. Or I'll put there's the Monterey Bay Aquarium has this really great one. It's got this lo-fi hip hop thing with like aquarium sound. It's like really relaxing.
Dude, you're rocking the lo-fi hip hop.
And I'll just
What?
I'll just put it on in the background because my kids around. My kids don't care about rock and roll, man.
Do they have? When last time I went to the Monterey Bay Aquarium, I remember the back of Screaming Children's Heads exhibit. There was a lot of those. Do they have
I'm
one
glad
of those?
they paid for this. The
Yeah.
key is you got to go off season. You can't go in the summer. You got to go I've gone there like in November, like around Thanksgiving time, and it's awesome, dude. There's like not even a third of the people there.
No screaming children?
Well, I'm sure there are some, but I mean, sometimes those are my kids, so it's one of those things that you kind of just have to do with that. But
Yeah, I'll have to show you a picture I took yesterday. Yesterday being a holiday, Memorial Day.
oh, really? Okay. I
We-
worked yesterday, so I don't even know.
No, that's great, man. I take Mondays off anyway.
That's
So
it's your personal day, right?
right, yeah,
Yes.
exactly. It's my
Been at meditating most of the day,
my,
right?
yes. I just sit on the roof
Exactly.
in Buddha pose.
Commune
yes.
with nature.
Yeah, so we got home from the grocery store and dude, the most horrifying thing.
I'm bated breath. What's the most horrifying thing?
There was a gaggle of children walking down the street.
Okay.
There was like an adult in front and an adult like behind. Dude,
Is it like from a preschool or something?
there were so many of them.
Yeah.
Dude, like under 10 years old.
The world is full of children right now.
Dude, they were like all like loose out on the street and stuff. Like I didn't see any leashes. Right? Like I mean, what? Like I mean, I assumed the parents had like plastic bags in case one of them pooped.
That makes sense.
You know,
but they go straight in their pants, though. That's
they
how
must
do
have been
that.
coming back from the park or whatever. Anyway, so I went to the. So I went ahead and put out some traps, and I went to the pawn shop and I bought a few Xboxes.
I love the, of course, like, you know, the joyous laughter of children fills you with rage.
Well, I mean, look, it was a holiday, so I couldn't call the pest control company. Right, it wouldn't have made a difference, right? So, yeah, so I just went and got some Xboxes at the pawn shop.
just to lay traps.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
gotcha,
and that's
It's the Chester cheese for gotcha.
yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I mean,
By the way,
you know, they didn't come back, so I didn't have to empty any of the traps.
It's all good. It's fine. It's probably better for everyone that happened that
Yeah.
way. I should probably mention, welcome to the Rock Guitar Confidential Podcast with Brian and Scott. Now we've just kind of gotten this deep into the podcast. I haven't even said hello to anybody. You don't even know what's happening. In fact, I don't even know when we started recording. We just were talking, and then the recording happened at some point.
You know, just the conversation is just that rich.
But that, you know what's not rich? Sam Ash.
Oh yeah, so today's
You know what else is
topic.
not rich?
So we're
Watermelon Music in Davis, which is a long time
that really
staple
makes me
music store.
sad, man.
Yeah, me too. Today's topic. Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, I guess that's today's topic, man. A
Is
couple
sadness.
of
We're all just sad.
yeah, just how important it is to support your local music store.
I would say largely the death of brick and mortar retail music shops. You know what I mean? That's
Well-
kind of, there's a handful that are hanging in there, but it's like, boy, it's, you know what, it feels like it's happening. So just if anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, Sam Ash recently announced that they're closing all their stores. And there's also a music store that's a longtime staple music store here in the Sacramento area.
Well, in Davis.
In Davis, and then
Right.
they also see sort of Wheatland and Sacramento too, for that matter. People who drive out there for instruments and stuff. Called Watermelon Music, that also just announced that it's closing its store. After I guess they had some kind of GoFundMe that they were able to stay in
Oh,
business
did they?
for a while, and then
Whoa.
and they must have owed their creditors that much money that GoFundMe didn't even make a dent in the debt that they owed. So.
Oh, that's too bad.
So
I mean, that'll kill you.
I feel like what's happening, and you probably can speak more of this than I can, because I've been, out of the teaching at a big retailers thing for a while. But it feels like what's happening is the middle is getting kind of squeezed out of the music retail business. There's sort of the super high-end boutique-y places that are selling, diesel amps and Bogners and Surs and VGAs and Tom Anderson guitars and custom shop stuff.
Well, and how many of those are there nationwide?
Not many, but
Right.
that's one who are thriving because they can sell all that stuff. And then there's like the people who do like just lessons rentals and then maybe very minimal like strings and picks retail. Those guys are doing pretty good. And then it feels like that middle ground, the people who are trying to do like full line music stores, but independent full line music stores. I mean, clearly, it's not only is Sam Ash closing, Guitar Center's on the death store finally, after all these years of being essentially on death store. I think
Yeah. I think
the plug's about to be pulled on that one too. So
I think the question is, are all of these things going under for the same reason? And I mean, yes and no.
Well, I would say, what's your thought on that? Because you know better than I do on this one. So
with Watermelon, I mean, if there was a lot of, I mean, number one, they were in Davis, right? So if they didn't have a robust online presence, then that's a problem.
Yeah, you know what? That
right?
reminds me a lot of what happened to Northbridge Music too.
Yeah.
Northbridge Music is another company. I think that some of these, especially, have been owned by the same people for a very long time, like since the 70s or something like that. They have a very hard time adjusting because, especially, I mean, I get it, because if you consider that you've ran your business a certain way for 30 years, then along comes e-retailing, and then all of a sudden you have to change everything you do because the entire marketplace changed. I can see why it's hard for them to pivot.
Oh, sure.
I mean, that makes sense, but you got to do that or you're going to go under. That's just what happens.
Yeah.
The world changes. You can't be stuck in your ways like that and not be able to move. You know what I mean? And if you have no online presence in 2024, I just can't imagine.
Yeah, that's just not going to cut it.
That's you're not gonna. That's not a recipe for survival at all. Which is what, especially like Sweetwaters and Reverbs of the world out there, are completely coming for you. And people are even Amazon. Like people are so conditioned to purchase online now. It's not even considered an entry point bar anymore. Like back in the day, you're like, well, I'm not going to play anything I can't play through or can't pick up. That used to be the kind of thing that saved the brick and mortar retail, is that people wouldn't buy a guitar sight unseen. They wouldn't buy any amp.
Well, that's part of it. And I still think there's a lot to be said about the experience of going to the retailer too, right?
For sure,
So
absolutely.
number one, you want to play a guitar before you buy it, right?
Especially a guitar. It's such a feel thing. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, even with my recent guitar purchase,
which is what, by the way? Let's talk.
It's my new Comparison Horus M3.
I just played this thing. It's freaking rad.
Dude, thanks.
It is so rad. Yeah, it's so cool. It's
As
very Ryan too. It's like it couldn't be more Ryan.
So what makes it Ryan, Scott?
Well, I would say the purple for one, and then the awesome sort of like asymmetrical body shape. The kind of horn on the headstock that looks like it's ready to jab someone in the face.
Ooh, yeah, they call that the devil's tail headstock.
Exactly. So
yes.
I mean, it couldn't be more. And then the playability, the Floyd Rose, the angled 27 frets. So there's so many things about it that, like, because one of your things is you like to kind of be a little off center. You're not going to go get the same thing everyone else gets. Right. And I think this really hits all those buttons for that. Comparison makes great stuff, by the way. If you guys don't know this company, they really are a fantastic builder. Yeah. You have a range of stuff. It's not only the super high end stuff. They have some mid-price
Actually,
stuff.
no, it's all. Well, it's mostly okay. They have a series that's kind of in like the $1,500.
Yeah, when I say mid-price, I'm talking about $1,200.
Range.
They don't have like a $300 guitar, no, but they have like stuff that's in like the $1,000, $1,500-ish range. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
which is reasonable for a nice guitar. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Yeah, like it's still a really well-built guitar, but like the real stuff that's built in Japan. You're looking like $3,500 and up.
Yeah, that's most really nice guitars are in that range. You know what I mean? But you can get a good guitar in that $1,500-$1,700 range. That's
absolutely,
really good guitar.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Just because I'm a guitar snob.
Yeah.
So
the people know like that's. I mean, anything north of $1,000, you should be getting a really good guitar.
Right.
Anything south of that, like I'll say, really between $500 and $1,000, there's some good guitars to be had there, but you got to know what you're looking for.
There'll be a little bit of variance from manufacturer to manufacturer.
But you're definitely giving stuff up. There's a reason why a guitar costs $1,200 to $1,500. Right. There's certain things you're getting in terms of hardware, electronics, build construction.
That's right. So in the case of the Comparison, so I mean, I bought this one not sight unseen. There were pictures.
But like without picking up and playing it.
Well, right, but I have played a Comparison Horus at NAMM.
Yep.
So I know what it's going to be, and a guitar at that price point is going to be that same thing.
Yeah.
Right, from a reputable, Comparison used to be Jackson's Custom Shop in Japan, so it's a handmade Japanese guitar. So at that level.
But here's the question though: is it Godzilla approved?
Hell yeah, it is.
He put a stamp on it.
Dude, Gojira, that's right.
All right,
man. Okay, so
wait, is it Hello Kitty approved though?
It's Goodbye Kitty approved. Yes. So, okay, man, you had to mention Godzilla because...
I did? I didn't know I had to mention Godzilla.
So we're going to get back to the music retail thing here in a minute. No, dude, okay, so I've spoken out against the infantilization of media on this podcast many times.
Yep, ever since you got your Word of the Week calendar, you've been speaking out about it.
Yes, right, and I'm still working on pronouncing it, but... So... all right, so I missed Godzilla -1 when it was in theaters. Now that's the most recent, Toho Japanese made.
Is that streaming yet?
It's not.
Oh, okay.
It's on Amazon Prime in Japan. So like, I mean,
you can't get in the States at all.
Right. So you can use a VPN to get it, but there's no English subtitles if you do that. And unfortunately, I still haven't learned how to speak Japanese, which I really would like to do. Yeah. But, just like learning guitar, it takes two people doing it in the same room.
And a lot of time and energy.
Right, practice. Yeah. And, you have to immerse yourself. So, like any language, including music.
Yep,
anyway, so one of the reasons it's not streaming in the United States is because there's also, Godzilla X Kong. There's that whole universe,
the Universal one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Universal Monsterverse.
Yeah, the Monsterverse, right? Yeah. Now, like the first, Godzilla 2014, that was cool. It had, Godzilla. You didn't see a lot of the kaiju, but that's fine because they were like mean and threatening, and Godzilla had weight when he.
There's actually a really cool fight during that one when he's killing the Mutos in San Francisco.
Yeah, dude, the Mutos looked cool. Yeah. So pretty good start, right? Kong Skull Island also pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a great movie. Actually,
so great action scenes. Kong felt like he had scale, like he was a serious, threat to your life if you were a human.
Yeah.
Some humans died, and dude, one guy got thrown up against the wall of a mountain and just went.
Yeah.
Right, just splat.
Yeah, it shows you the scale of the
blood spray too. And stuff. Yep. Right. When Misty and I went to Hawaii, we went to Honolulu Ranch. Or Wailea Ranch, whatever, the ranch where they film everything like Jurassic Park.
Yeah, it's like a whole canyon, right?
Yeah, we got to go through the field where all the Kong Skull Island, like the boneyard.
Oh, they shot that in the same place?
Yeah, totally.
Oh,
They
that's
still
cool.
have all the props are there. So
Oh, that's
giant,
cool.
like when the dude gets on the like on the 50 cal on the back of the skull, like the Triceratops skull.
Yeah.
The Triceratops skull's still there. It's made out of styrofoam.
I mean, I would assume it's not made of an actual.
I mean,
but,
everything's made out of styrofoam. Like the wall from Jurassic Park where the
they're not gonna
Dominus Rex was.
They're not going to build a giant
Styrofoam.
Yeah, of course.
Yep.
But they make it look like for real. I mean, it's
Right. It's it's awesome. So so those movies were great for that.
I think they're very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So and then the other ones came later and still not too bad. Like King of the Monsters was pretty good in terms of giant monsters destroying stuff.
Yeah, dude,
right.
totally. Yeah.
Okay, so the first scene of Godzilla X Kong,
The new one that just
the
came out.
very new one.
Not Godzilla versus Kong. They're talking about the
Not Godzilla versus Kong, although we could see that things were trending in the wrong direction in that film. But Godzilla X Kong just completely shits the bed.
I don't know.
And here's
man.
how you know.
I took my son to see that movie and he had a great time. So that's all I'll say.
It completely shits the bed.
I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. I mean,
here's how you know. Here's how I knew. Right? There's the opening scene, right, where Kong's being chased through.
yeah, he's fighting the wolves basically.
Well, they're like these giant hyenas that are chasing him,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. And then there's a standoff, and
he traps them and
he picks one up and he holds it over his head and he rips it in half.
yeah.
And gets soaked with its innards.
And he's like, "Oh, gross, dude. This sucks. I'm gonna shower." Yep.
Dude, the innards are green.
Well, yeah. So
They did that for children.
Well, they did
I
that-
knew the movie was going to be
They did that
garbage
so they could
right
get a
after that.
PG-13 rating. Is why they did that. That's
So we're saying the same thing. He should have been soaked in the blood.
So what you're saying
of
is
his
he
enemy.
made the right decision because they wanted to make as much money as possible. I think that movie's
No.
mirroring $600 million worldwide right now. So they did the right thing.
It is garbage.
They did the right thing.
And then there's Baby Kong, right? Great. Now there's a Kid Kong, and then there's like the human kid. And then when they're having those battles in like zero gravity, that's just so they don't have to spend as much money on visual effects. Because you don't have to have anything behind. So there is no sense of scale. Scar King moves around too fast, so you don't feel like he's really big. And when they're all floating around against a monocolor sky background, you might as well just be watching Saturday morning cartoons.
Well, you know what's funny to me is that I had a feeling you'd feel that way.
I feel exactly that way.
I can tell that. Yeah.
Well, and then
By the way, if you look at the box office though for the movies,
care.
It went up and up and up. It didn't really start skyrocketing
Well,
until
so
Godzilla versus Kong. You know what I mean?
You're just illustrating the problem. Here's this cool movie franchise about monsters killing stuff and breaking things. And now it's Muppet Babies.
But
It's the trajectory.
If you look at from a studio's perspective, like when you make a movie,
I get that.
That's what you're going to get because you want the most money possible. So you have to make sure it's PG-13.
Okay, well, you know what? Godzilla -1 didn't do that.
Yeah, but they didn't make anywhere near, not even in the same universe, as much money.
Well, but I mean, how much profit did they make?
They made a good profit, but it wasn't like the
It might have been more profit.
The ceiling is really limited on when you have something like that. You can only do so much.
The budget for Godzilla -1 was
$15 million.
lower.
I know.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, but I think it made like 100 million worldwide or something like that, or 150 worldwide, which is, I mean, a good profit. Amazing. Consider marketing is probably another 20 million, so they probably end up making 70 million profit.
Well, you know what? As soon as they're able to, I know they have an agreement with the MonsterVerse that they can't like release within a certain time frame.
Yeah, because they don't want to compete with each other.
But I want to let the makers of Godzilla -1 know that as soon as you make it available in the United States, you will earn $25 more.
Oh my God, that's the whole reason they're gonna do it right there.
Right, that's right. So so cool. Well, I'm glad we're all in agreement. Godzilla X Kong is utter trash.
I actually thought it was fun. So that's just me. I don't know,
dude.
No.
Green. It's just all they had to do was change the color palette.
I gotta tell you, man, not a deal breaker for me.
Okay, here, just to all the executive kids know what blood is.
I know, but the thing is, there's the MPAA, which decides what's considered PG-13 versus R.
So
you think that one thing, turn it
MPAA.
green instead of red, now I got a PG-13 rating, and I can make another 150 million.
Yeah, and that's garbage.
Well,
that
kids need to see monster movies too. You know what I mean?
Look, okay, so I just got done watching RoboDoc, this RoboCop documentary. I recommend everyone watch it.
Oh, it's called RoboDoc?
Yeah, it's called It's a documentary about RoboCop.
I thought it was like about RoboDoctor or something like that, which is also coming, by the way.
Which, I've so my intuitive surgical investment has paid off so far. They're a little bit down today, but
as is most things actually in the Dow at least.
But
if you're in tech, it's actually not doing bad.
go NVIDIA. I love.
We gotta get back to
anyway.
where our mission
All
statement
right,
is.
so back to the music store thing. So all those companies like Watermelon and Guitar Satan, like
and Sam Ash,
Sam Ash, like no offense to Satan because we know he and I are pals,
yes. Well, Guitar Satan is going to go away, so it's
that'll be good for everybody, man.
I don't know, is it though?
I think so.
I mean, isn't it really best for Sweetwater? Is that eliminates one more competition from them? You know what I mean? And
does
that turn Sweetwater into essentially like Apple? You know what I mean? Where like just like the
no, I don't think so because
behemoths bestriding the globe, and we're all just
I still think you can run. I still think you can run a retail space and be successful.
Yeah, I feel like what has to happen is you can't get too much over your head with how much inventory you're carrying. You have to recognize what your market is, and you have to be smart about what kind of debt you're taking on and what the market is.
Right, it's the debt part, right? So I suspect that Watermelon, so full disclosure, I don't know, I have no facts. Yeah. This is all just speculation, what I'm about to say.
Okay, cool.
Right, but
so you got your spot at Fox News all ready to go. Is what you're saying. You know, it's funny.
I could go so far. With
I can go from an insides because I remember standing, being in the ship that was going down as the SS Northridge Music.
Well, and I remember the SS guitar player that sank before Northridge.
But it was a thing where they had debts, and then they partially what happened is partially the dealer or the manufacturers that caused it because they were requiring such big buy-ons from all the dealers. Like if you want to be a Fender dealer, you have to have this much units every year, blah blah blah.
Gibson's been that way forever,
and so they would do it because they didn't want to lose that line, and then they got basically crushed under the weight of trying to keep up with those buys, and there was no way that they're going to sell enough to even remotely make up for that. And then they started paying one credit card with the other credit card and trying to and
so that's called flooring.
Yeah, is that what it's called? Okay.
Yeah, so when you're financing the inventory that you have on the floor, that's called flooring, right? So you can be a successful retail place if you own all the stuff that you are selling.
Yes, because you don't have the debt that you're paying out.
Correct, right? You're not getting crushed under a mountain of debt. So I just wonder if that's part of what happened with Watermelon. Plus, being in a smaller MSA metropolitan statistical area, folks.
I mean, Davis is close to Sacramento, and it's on the way to the Napa area too. So I would think that you might be able to pull from some of those places. You know what I mean? But that being said, like it's. I wish
they had been able to. I loved Watermelon.
I can tell you this: that they got $100,000 in GoFundMe money that didn't make a dent in their debt, and they still went under. That tells me like they were just like hopelessly in debt.
Yeah,
there's no way that was going to happen, and
that's really too bad.
I think that's because a lack of pivoting. Because there was a certain retail kind of a way of thinking about things, like full line guitar store with amps and guitars, and you had that, and then like the lessons and rentals thing was sort of like a sideline. The main business was the retail part of it.
Yeah, and I think lessons needs to be at the heart.
And rentals too.
Rentals are good too.
Yeah. Those got to be like that's got to be the pillars you build your business on if you're going to survive now. And then you need to be smart about what retail you do, and understand your market and not get too over your head and stuff like that. And
so in terms of being successful as a retail space, I've just got 3 words for you, man.
Okay.
Bass Pro Shops.
So you go hunting? Is that what we're talking about? Or
yeah, well, it's you can use your guitar as
spend all your time hunting.
Right,
that's where the best ideas come to you.
People still, you can order a fishing pole online.
That's true,
right? People still go to Bass Pro Shops because going to a Bass Pro Shop is awesome.
It's an experience.
It's an experience, right? Like you get to check out all the rods and reels and all the stuff. You get to, you're rubbing elbows with other people that love the same thing that you love.
Yeah, it's a shared thing.
Yeah, knowledgeable staff. But I mean, it's like going to a little amusement park for bass fishermen.
Yeah. Well, guitar stores used to be like that. And then what slowly happened is it became a situation where it was like, don't play that unless you have the money to buy it right now. Or the opposite is like the romper room, and everyone's just beating on everything and cranking it up, and like 50 kids playing different riffs badly all at the same time.
Yeah, that's I agree, and I'm happy to say things are not like that at Skips right now.
Oh,
things are actually pretty awesome.
Good, that's exactly what I want to hear.
Yeah, man, I think they're definitely hitting that Bass Pro Shop of musical instruments.
So Skips Music, for people who don't know, if you're listening in a part of the country that doesn't know what Skips Music is, it's a locally owned retailer. It's a good sized store. It's got a lot of retail. It's really got a full range of guitars and amps and things like that, as well as rentals and some lessons and things like that too. And yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, it's very challenging for I think any brick and mortar retailer, no matter what you do, whether you're a clothing store, or if you're a bakery or a coffee shop, or if you're a music retailer.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you name it. Any brick and mortar is immortally threatened by like Amazon, and
you have to give people a reason to leave the house.
Yep.
And I certainly know that, if I were a kid, dude, I'd be at Skips at least once a week. Like it's that cool.
But the thing is that the time frame that you and I grew up in was not the same time frame these people were in, and I think that's not seen as the cool place to go anymore. For if you're like 12 or 13, you know what I mean?
If you're 12 or 13, like leaving the house isn't cool anymore.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So that's the danger right there, and that's why Sweetwater and Reverb, eBay, Amazon have an advantage in that regard, because people are already very comfortable purchasing things online.
I think Amazon is kind of shooting itself in the foot because it's rightfully developing a reputation as the place where you go to buy really cheap Chinese crap.
Well, it can be that, but you can buy other stuff too off that. It's not like the only thing you can get.
Can, but I mean, Amazon. Okay, so I mean, if you're like a family that doesn't know anything about guitars.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to say, dude, if you want a nice Soldano Cecil 100, you can buy that on Amazon.
Okay, but you know what? If you're like. I don't know if my kid's going to stick with it, and so I don't want to spend a ton of money in case they don't like it.
Yeah.
You're going to end up with a BCP guitar.
What's that BCP with us?
It's a Chinese brand, and dude, you have.
I always recommend to people I've not been on PCP. No.
You haven't been, well, I'm glad you haven't been on PCP. I'm even more glad you've never been on a BCP guitar. Because,
I always recommend
they're out in the wild.
What I recommend to people when they get something from a manufacturer like Epiphone, Fender, Ibanez, buy it from a big
Fender, Ibanez, yeah.
No, I mean, Epis, they're hit and miss. You know what I mean?
Epiphones.
I've seen a couple SGs that are okay in that.
My beef with Epiphone is that around the $200 price range, they cut corners on hardware before their competitors do.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Ibanez and Fender, though, I feel very confident in getting their starter packs. Those are fine.
Yeah.
Other than the amps, I wish the starter packs, they put more thought into the amp. The amp is just like, let's make it slightly louder. But there's no other anything there. It's
right, you press the distortion button and it sounds like a hairdryer.
Charge them like another $25-$30 and then get them a real amp. You know what I mean? And that way at least they can play it and it feels like, because that's going to make people stop right there, that it just sounds so terrible. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
I used to encourage, I mean, you could go a la carte for like $300 to $400 and get something that's going to sound a whole lot better.
My advice whenever someone asks me like, what kind of guitar should I start with, is always like as much as you can afford. It's comfortably afford. That's what you should do. Don't go cheap, because it's going to be cheap.
Well, and remember, it's a musical instrument, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you bought a beginning tuba, I've said this before on the podcast, I think, you'd be out a couple grand just to find out you don't like playing tuba.
And you have to change your whole identity if you played tuba. Like you have to figure out how to make that work with who you are.
Right, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And tubas are heavy, man. I mean, you could dislocate your knee jumping.
But not heavy in a good way, like not heavy, bad heavy. You know what I mean?
Well, dude, I mean, a tuba would be heavy metal.
That's true. Literally, but not figuratively. So it feels to me like we're in a spot where it's a transition spot. Like a lot of the chaff is getting worked out. The stuff that the retailers who aren't able to adjust, who have bad ideas or are stuck in some kind of old mindset about how this works. I had this discussion with someone the other day about that. You got to be agile. That's one of the biggest things now. You have to be, no matter what you're doing, whatever kind of business you're running, you have to be agile, because things are changing so quickly all the time. Like the ground is shifting under your feet, whether you know it or not.
There's a lot of adapting going on.
You have to. And the companies that are best at adapting are the ones that are going to keep going. You know what I mean? And I think if you're like, hey, my granddad ran this business and his dad ran this business, and
that doesn't exist. Yeah.
I'm going to run it just like my granddad ran it. It's like, that doesn't work. Even a farmer, like you imagine like a 6th-generation family farm, like the way you do things has got to be totally different now than it was back then. So
in the music business, I mean, you just have to stick to what works, and at the core of it, it's about relationships.
And creating an experience and giving people value that they feel like they're getting a lot what they're spending. I think those are the things that have got to happen. And
that's exactly right.
The challenge is just, I think the younger generation's the challenge, because the idea of going to a physical place to create an experience that's not a restaurant or an Instagrammable place,
up until they're old enough to drive, which is like 21 these days.
Yeah, or 27.
Right, yeah. The kids aren't so hot on driving.
Yeah.
I think there's a new value for parents who want their kids to leave the house, because at least if you wind up at Skips, like, the destination's awesome.
Yeah.
Right. If you're taking lessons, then, you
Not to sound like an infomercial for Skips, but it's true.
Yes,
any other quality,
any
other quality retailer. You know what I mean?
I'm clearly being a homer for Skips here. I have some skin in the game.
I get you. Yeah, of course. I mean, but that being said, that's any other quality retailer would be a similar thing. Just got to get them physically into a store playing instruments. You know what I mean? And, And no, turntables are not instruments. Yeah, that is not an instrument.
Unless you're putting on like some smooth lo-fi rap with your green noise.
I guess, but I mean, it's like I don't even consider that music. It's so funny. Like, someone's asked me today, like, what do you put on when you're around your kids? Like, just whatever, because I don't care. I don't even consider it music. It's just it's like literally like just a step above white noise. You know what I mean? I
think no matter what we talk about this podcast, like, we're gonna look back, and the real shocker is like you actually opted to put on lo-fi rap at under any context,
just
in your
because,
life
like,
ever.
dude, like, you know what? Part of it is that like my kids don't like rock. If there's any electric guitars of any kind, they instantly are like, I don't like this.
What?
Yeah, and so it's like,
is that just because they're rebelling, or
no? It's just that's not their thing. They find it. You know, all the things that we love about electric guitars, like it's in your face and it's electric and it's powerful and it's like abrasive and like that's not something they're into. You know,
that's interesting. You know, I was listening to Marty Friedman interview, and he was trying to explain why, awesome rock and metal guitar still thrives in Japan.
Yep.
And one of his theories was, based on the nature of Japanese folk instruments, and I can't remember what the name,
but he would know better than either of us.
Absolutely, he would, right? Like, so there's like so just think of like stringed instruments in traditional Japanese music. Mm-hmm. It has a certain timbre, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That is not unlike distorted electric guitar.
Yeah, it's a can.
Okay, Okay, cool. So the Japanese culture the Japanese ear is more willing to accept that kind of sound.
Yeah, the German ear is also willing to accept.
Yeah, yes, right. Well, the German ear can handle music that's fast, like a shark.
Exactly.
But I mean, it's also a favorite of London Leather Boys.
That's true.
Right.
So they're willing to accept it. That's for sure.
Yes, they're willing to accept music that pins their balls to the wall.
That's true. Yeah, especially that. You kidding me? That's like the main kind. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're a real midnight mover, then you could be living in London or Germany, accepting it. Yeah.
I know.
Oh man, I love Udo Dirkschneider.
I think the other thing about Japanese culture too is that they don't like celebrate mediocrity. It's not something like no one's like, oh, you got to see, way to go. Yeah, that's not at all that culture in any way. So I think the idea of like, hey, I'm not very good, but I'm expressing myself, and all that matters is I'm expressing myself. Like, no, you suck. Go practice.
Thanks for listening to Rock Guitar Confidential with Scott and Ryan. Please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Now back to the show.
That's part of that culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not a participation award culture. It doesn't seem
exactly. So I think that's I think that's part of it. And,
although I'm just speculating.
Yeah.
But.
Now that being said, there are pitfalls in the music retail industry that we want to talk about too, which is that to me, there's a bunch of things that are made that are not made for like real guitar players. They're made for like
hobbyists.
They're made for people who are like want something like a cool thing to put in the wall or something like that. And I mean, like we were talking about straps. There's certain kind of straps that hobbyists would play.
So here's there's and I mean, I guess this is just my point of view, right? So all my guitars these days get a DiMarzio clip lock strap. Now the clip lock, of course, it's very functional, and it's the most secure ever invented, in my opinion, right?
Yep.
The screws that go into the body of the guitar, they're deep, right?
Yeah.
I actually had to have the technician at Skips, Eric Gutierrez. Here's another free promotion.
Eric's a great dude, like Eric.
Dude, Eric's awesome.
Yeah.
If you need guitar work done, go see Eric Gutierrez. So they call the Horus M3 an M3 because even though it's a bolt-on, the body is three pieces. It's solid maple down the middle with mahogany wings on either side.
Makes sense from a tonal perspective. Why not? Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, dude, the guitar is loud when it's unplugged for an electric guitar, which I love.
Yep.
You should feel, even in an electric guitar, you should feel it resonate in your guts.
Yep. If it doesn't sound like anything when you're playing it, it's not going to sound like anything when you plug it in.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. So I managed to get the strap pin in on the upper horn just fine. I mean, the mahogany's softer, right?
Yeah.
But dude, the maple stopped me dead in my tracks.
You didn't want to split it or anything like that.
I didn't want to strip the head of the screw, so thankfully Eric came to my rescue, drilled another pilot, got it in there, got it installed. It's all good. So about the strap, right? So you were asking about the guy that I bought the guitar from, and I suspect he was a wealthy hobbyist. Okay, and I suspect that for two reasons. One, it's a 2019 guitar, and it looks like it just came right off the wall. Yeah, there were a couple things, like I had to replace the output jack. The output jack, it points up, right, so that you can run your cable through the strap, as you would do anyway, right?
Yeah. And also not going to step on it and unplug yourself because it's not on the bottom of the guitar.
That's right. So now I can use a straight end cable instead of having to get like an L, which I have right angle cables too, so it wouldn't really be a big deal. But anyway,
I always use wrong angle cables.
Yes, the wrong angle.
Yeah.
Yes.
What? This one's the wrong angle? What the hell?
The wrong angle. Yeah, I like that. So that sounds like that'd be a good brand name. Wrong angle. Anyway, so there was a short, which means I think it was only ever played like sitting down with the cable just kind of pointing up and then hanging out, so it kind of was
twisted a little bit, or
so it was angled. It's just over time, which again, it doesn't look like it ever got played. It's like there aren't any pick swirlies or scratches in the finish,
which is hard to believe because if you played it all, that's going to happen.
Dude, it's shocking. I like the day after I ordered it, I started thinking that maybe it was a scam. So, I emailed the seller, super nice guy.
Mainly because he said he was a Nigerian prince and he needed your help.
Right, I've fallen for that one so many times.
I'll send you this guitar if you only send me $25 million.
Dude, that's and again, I've fallen for that one so many times, dude. I end up. Yeah, never mind. Anyway, so I'll have to tell you about the time that I ended up on the Ivory Coast.
Not as cool as it sounds, man.
Right, it didn't work out quite the way I expected it. So there was that, but the other reason I think it was a hobbyist is that it had it was like one of those Planet Waves straps with like a gray, like tribal tattoo design on it.
Yeah, it could have just been a bro. He's like, hey, bro.
I mean,
did you find any Red Bull? Was there any Red Bull?
No, there was no Red Bull. I didn't see any like
Monster Energy drink.
There weren't any like UFC stickers in the bag or anything. So I don't think it was that. I just think. I don't know. I mean, so I go for the brightly colored DiMarzio clip lock, but it's a solid color. It's just enough to be outrageous without being tacky, I think. But there are some products that I think are just like specifically for the hobbyist.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to put my finger on why. This is strictly a matter of taste. We've talked about the
pedals before. Like if there's a thing that says like destroy on the pedal, like for a distortion pedal, like destroy button, it's like then it's made for a hobbyist. That kind of thing.
And if it has a suck knob, it's a grunge pedal. Right,
but then there's stuff that I think is also made for the hobbyist, but the high end hobbyist. Like when they have we're going to make the same the shell of this amplifier, but it's going to be made of all flame maple in a custom color for an upcharge of $2,800 or something like that. You know what I mean? It's
that's a different kind of hobbyist.
That's a different kind of hobbyist, but I feel like that's a lot of what a lot of manufacturers were aiming towards is like that high, well heeled, like high end hobbyist. Like the people who when they made the $29,000 EVH replica guitar, they made like 30 of them or something. They're like 29,000 each or something.
Okay, that was kind of cool though.
It was cool, but it's not.
Did you ever get to play one?
No, but is anybody like who's like a working person have a prayer of getting their hands?
Oh no, not at all.
It's gonna go in a trophy case to some freaking CEO somewhere.
But I'll admit, man. So I got to play that guitar.
Okay.
Skip bought one
for personal, Yeah.
I got to play it.
Nice.
And I know it was a replica, but I had also at that point I had been steeped in like the whole manufacturing. But like for example, there's a quarter that Eddie screwed on the top.
71 quarter. Or
72, I think. Okay. So Fender Corp went and found a bunch of 1972 quarters. So like they just agonized over making every little detail like Eddie's guitar.
Yeah.
And so that felt. I knew it wasn't Eddie's guitar,
but it may as well have been. I get you.
I mean, if I were blind and you handed both guitars to me, they probably would have, They'd
probably just fall on the ground. You wouldn't see them coming.
Yeah, right. I would fall to the ground because it was a solid body guitar.
Damn it! Why are you just handing me the
It's probably
guitar?
solid
I'm
maple.
blind. You can't
Yeah, right.
tell this. Why do you keep doing this?
God, you
not
wouldn't-
funny.
You wouldn't do this to Stevie Wonder.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you would. Yeah,
So-
but that
so
started
that
off a
was
whole
cool.
series of like replica guitar. They did like a Stevie Ray Vaughan replica. They did an Yngwie replica. They did a bunch of like
Well,
replicas.
the Yngwie signature. Wait, so the
No, they
Yngwie
did a replica. They did a
signature model.
replica.
Did they?
of his. They went. They redid. They did the duck. His like famous white
Yeah,
yellow
and
strap. But
we
I mean,
all know I love Yngwie, but like, I think that thing only worked with that one Eddie guitar.
No, but I mean they tried a bunch of those with the same kind of like we're
Yeah.
gonna do just nut for nut, we're gonna screw hole for screw hole, exactly the same guitar.
Yeah.
We're gonna charge you $20,000 for it, and they all sold. They sold them all, and it's one of those things I keep thinking like, yeah, but that's aimed at a certain kind of hobbies. And like Sir guitar is like, hey, if you want this guitar
Sir,
chambered and you want it to
yeah.
have a 4A flame top with this custom color, with this kind, and we're gonna end up with a guitar that's in the
Sir's pretty
70.
good.
They're a great guitar. I'm not
They're good
trashing the
guitars, yeah.
quality of the instrument. I'm just saying that's not aimed at the actual player. It's aimed at like a person who's like a doctor who wants just like showpiece. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, I feel like I see what you're saying. I think Sir is more of a. I mean, if you're buying a Sir, I'll bet a higher percentage of Sir players are good players.
I would say probably care about it more.
Like, you only know about Sir if you've been at this for a little while.
I don't know, sir.
Sir, listen here, sir. I'll tell you what, man. If
I've played them and they're great guitars. I'm not trashing the quality.
like
about
if I had like $5,000 to just blow on something, I would seriously consider a Sir Red Beach.
I mean, they're great guitars, and there's a handful of great players who use them and stuff. But I feel like the whole market for that, like the Tom Anderson, the Sirs, and then frankly even the VGAs, which are the guitars I use, they're really more
Well, and
aimed.
the comparisons then, for that matter.
They're really aimed at the high end player, and a lot of those guys are probably guys who can play or guys who care about playing well, whether or not they're great necessarily. They want to have a great instrument.
Yeah,
I get that.
I think you can feel the difference.
You definitely can.
There is in a really high end guitar. There's a certain there's a certain feeling of it being solid.
Yeah, there's nothing crappy about it. Yeah.
Yeah, like again, speaking about the comparison, like it's got weight because of the maple body, but like the tolerances are all really tight.
Yeah, and the hardware and the electronics are awesome.
Yeah, like we opened, to replace the output jack. Eric opened up the control plate and like, dude, he was so impressed. He beckoned me over to look inside. Dude, there is just no.
So he lit the beacons. Is that what
Yes,
happened?
he lit the beacons of Gondor.
And like six months later, he showed up on horseback.
Yes, right. Yes, and so
You
I
called.
hopped. And so so I left my music. So I left my teaching
Gondor
studio.
calls for aid. I've come
Right.
with as many men as I could muster.
So. So I left my studio and I immediately mounted Shadowfax. And it took me 4 days as the crow flies.
Exactly.
But,
And eventually you're able to marvel at the
yes, to marvel at
incredible
the
work.
inside of my guitar.
Yeah.
And dude, like there is just no waste. There, like every wire is just as long as it needs to be to get from the potentiometer to the switch, and then it's perfectly soldered. Like there's no bundles of wires that are then like zip tied together.
I think what we're
inside.
talking about really is like the difference between like a really nice car and like a high end car. And I think that that depends on like if you want something that's a good value, you're almost never going to get something in the $45,000 to $5,000 that's a great value. You're getting a lot of guitar, but you're not getting a great value. It's like if you buy a Maserati, you're not getting a great value.
Right,
Whereas
you
if
spend a
get
lot of money maintaining.
If you get like
it,
a high, like a nice, let's say, I don't know, a Mazda or something like that, it's going to have a lot of great features, but you're going to only pay $45,000 for it instead of $85,000. You're going to get a lot of value in that $40,000. And to me, that's not where the value is in musical instruments. Like you need to aim for that like $1,200 range to find where the value is going to be. Does that make sense? And on top of that, you're just getting a bunch of things that may or may not matter to everybody. You know what I mean? And I think to me, that's something I'm aware of. You know what I mean? And like I've talked to people, I'm a VGA artist and I love their guitars and I've been using them for 15 years from this point. But they're very high-end guitars, and were I not one of their artists, I probably would not spend the money on it because it's just one of those things that I can get the job done with something else that's not going to be that expensive. You know what I mean?
but your VJ feels like nothing
it's
else.
way better.
It's way better,
no doubt.
yeah.
And it's like if you can drive the Maserati,
right,
and then you do it. But that being said, like if you didn't have the option of doing that, then there's a bunch of other things that could do the job too. Then I find that most working musicians, most guys who aren't either touring guys or are like local guys who play and that's their living, they don't tend to play the super high end stuff. They tend to play the middle of the road stuff, and that's just a good tool that they use.
Sure.
So to me, when I see someone playing like something like say a $1,500 Japanese RG.
Well, if it's Japanese, then and that's where they're. That's.
But
where
I can tell that person
know.
probably knows what they're doing. It's a nice enough guitar that's a serious guitar, but
Right.
it's not like this like $8,500 guitar with like the 4A quilt maple.
Yeah, I play
You know
my
what I mean?
Japanese RG. I play my RG 550 at least 5 days a week.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying though. Like,
Yeah.
I can tell there's a seriousness about the person. They got this tool for a reason. They didn't buy it for a showpiece.
Oh well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Nah.
But you know what I mean. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the showpiece guitar, but I find that generally when I come across people who are playing the super high end boutique stuff, that's not their profession. If that makes sense.
Right. You should definitely. I'm particularly proud of my good old Brian Moore C55, handmade American guitar.
Bragging on that.
Yeah, quilt top, like it's the real deal.
Back when you could get a handmade American guitar for like $2,000.
I think. Well, you know what? It was so in 1998, it cost like $1,300.
Wow, that's a good deal actually.
And I got my first credit card to pay for it.
Oh wow.
I was supposed to put it on the floor at Skips, right? It was supposed to be in inventory. Yep. I opened the case, looked at it, and said, "Nope." Click.
Going home with me today.
Yeah, this one. Yep. I'm gonna get that credit card. I'm gonna buy, and I paid it off.
And credit cards, as everyone knows, are free money. So
right.
You don't have
totally.
to pay that back.
And I was in my early 20s, and I knew better.
Yeah.
But you know what? I still have it, and it's got dings and dents and scratches and rust.
I think a curse in there too, isn't it? A curse, like some kind of shaman.
It's right. It's got a voodoo curse on it, which I love.
It's got everything. I mean,
oh, totally. Well, because you can spread the curse.
Yeah, exactly.
and that part's rad. I actually, when that gaggle of kids walked by my house yesterday,
Did you curse them?
I went and got my Brian Moore and I shot the curse over, just to keep them out of the neighborhood.
Using a diminished lick, so it's just passed on.
Totally diminished. Yeah, absolutely. He did some Dracula's Castle.
Exactly
licks,
right.
And, yeah,
all tritones.
I played Mr. Crowley really loud.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the kids will never know what's going to happen. But
no, not
at
at all.
that point forward, their trajectory of life is going to turn.
Well, you know what, man? Dude, when I want the kids to come by, like every Halloween, I leave out beer and cigarettes, and then it's always there the next morning. You know what I mean? So
you live in a bad neighborhood, man. This neighborhood's got to
clearly
you got to find some higher level people around. You know what I mean?
guess, man.
So let's talk about something on the more positive side. What is the future?
Guitar Center's going out of business.
That's
awesome.
But like, what is the future of music retail? I mean, I know Sweetwater is not going anywhere. I know Reverb's not going anywhere. I think that if anything else, those guys are probably going to eventually take the Amazon model and have a handful of like physical retail locations, and then be mostly online. I could see that happening.
Well, and then there's like Carvin Kiesel. They still exist, right?
Yeah, they're like very much a custom shop with one location. You know
and Carvin Audio still exists, which is interesting to me. So like Carvin, Carvin was the mail order, but they make everything shop.
They've got kind of a niche that they've sort of carved out for themselves.
They sort of carvined out for themselves.
They carvined out, exactly. But I mean, then people know Carvin. People who know about Carvin know Carvin and Kiesel. It's
right. So Kiesel seems to still be
not
doing
a
well.
household name necessarily, but people who know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, guitar player. If you're a guitar player for any length of time, you're gonna get in the know at some point.
Man, you'd be surprised. There's many people who play for a long time. It depends. At one point, that I would agree with you on that, but I think nowadays everyone lives in these custom curated bubbles that we create for ourselves. And
and so if you're into guitars, the algorithm's gonna you know that Kiesel spends money on search engine optimization, SEO. You know what I mean? Everybody's doing that, right?
That being said, though, I haven't run across too many people who are like hobbyist guitarists who know about Kiesel. It's usually more serious players who know about Kiesel. You know what I mean?
So there's, maybe that's a rich topic for a future podcast. Like at what level. At what level do you finally start being aware of stuff like Kiesel and manufacturers?
When you start realizing
the
limitations of like the stuff that you're playing. Like once you're good enough to understand the limitations of this, why is this Jag stang not work the way I want it to?
Well, there's a lot of reasons.
Once you get good enough to recognize that's when you start looking for other things. You know what I mean?
God, let's hope everybody gets that good.
Yes, I hope so too. That's my hope. That's my mission statement as a guitar instructor.
Absolutely,
makes them so good that they want that Ibanez RG. You know
so you've got to get I want all of my students to get so good that they realize that Jag stang is crap.
Yep, exactly right.
Nice.
And same with a Les Paul double cut with like P90s. We don't need that. Nobody ever should play that. You know what I mean? You know, I just, you know, I think it's one of my core beliefs actually. Is
But actual Les
no
Pauls
one
are
should
cool.
ever have to play a Les Paul double cut with him. No one should ever have to be exposed to P90s in general. That should not have to happen. You know, P90s, as I always say, all the problems with single coils without any of the benefits of humbuckers.
Yes, agreed.
I despise those pickups so much. Oh my god, I hate them. You know, it's.
I just don't know what man, just, you know, 5-way switch, humbuckers, and coil taps.
Yeah. I want a guitar that's awesomely made and can do everything. Okay,
Now,
cool.
you know, all that having been said, the old comparison here, it's 2 humbuckers. One of them is a stack coil in the neck.
That's actually in the proud tradition of the Night Swan, actually. Yeah.
Yes, or, you know, it reminds me of the Hammered Californian.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
You know, with the extra frets and the 2 one angle pickup. I'm seriously considering, though, swapping it for an EMG set.
I can see that. That makes sense.
You know, just because, dude, the EMGs I have in, like, my other, like, the Haunted guitar, my ESP, which I call it the Haunted guitar because the original...
It's not the Curse guitar. That's the differentiator.
No, the Brian Moore has the...
That's the
Voodoo
Curse
Curse.
guitar.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
yeah. That
So
one's just Haunted.
it's an important distinction.
Yeah, that's true.
So the ESP is the Haunted guitar because the original owner died and his widow sold it to Skips, and then I bought it.
Okay, cool. Did you have anything to do with the death? I mean, you have a look in your eye when you say that.
Anyway, so...
Let's just say maybe brakes were cut or not cut. I don't know. You know, it's...
You know, just because I have some ether lying around, or I'm fired up about chemistry.
Yeah,
Okay?
it makes sense. Yeah, like I said.
So, you know, so that guitar I got an EMG set, EMG X's, which I'm really digging, and then in the Ibanez, I've got the Jim Root set.
Oh, that's cool.
So, dude, it finally happened. I think I've become an active pickup guy.
Yeah, I'm not there, man. I've never been a fan of active pickups.
I'm just really digging those 2 guitars. So I'm thinking for the comparison, you know, maybe, you know, doing a certain active humbucker, but then changing the neck pickup to the Steve Lukather active single coil.
I can see that. All right. Well, I mean, that's all
that
worth.
could be pretty cool. I'm afraid maybe the pickups on the comparison are a little too dark. They're great.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean,
I didn't realize
options
you
are
were a
open.
pickup racist. I didn't know that.
A pickupist.
There's just like a certain kind of sound that's in that neighborhood, if that makes sense. You know.
Yes. So we'll see. We'll see what the final decision is.
So no, like,
I'll
what do
live
you?
with
What
it
do
for a
you?
while,
Let's get
but-
back to what do you feel like the future of music retail is going to be? I mean, it's clearly there's going to be a future of music retail. I feel like it's going to be a lot of lessons and rentals in certain places. It's going to be high end boutique stuff and everything else online. That's kind of what I figure.
just think it's not all doom and gloom, right? I think, and again, I know I sound like a total shill, but I think, as of late, I've been pretty optimistic about Skips.
Well, it's true, but Skips is one retailer in one place in the entire country.
Well, it's the only one that matters.
I bet there's like millions of other retailers out there. I mean, I'm just thinking like, okay, there's what's going to happen to like black market music in Hollywood? What's going to happen to like Santa Monica music down on
I don't know.
Those kind of places like that. I feel like the 70s, 80s, 90s model doesn't work anymore.
No,
that's
not
for
at all.
sure. So I feel like if anybody's trying to make that work, they're going to fail.
You can't move forward just based on nostalgia,
or based on how you've always done it. We always
Right.
did this. It's like, well, that's not how things work anymore. You
got to be Bass Pro Shops.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. But the question is, and this is something that maybe is another rich topic for a future podcast, is that thing that we are talking about, that experience of going to a music store, is that something that's going to die with our generation? You know what I mean? Is that a thing that only we care about? Do people who are like 15 care about that? I mean, I don't know the answer. I'm not trying to say that I do.
I don't know either. I really don't. So for a future podcast, the generation that grew up with smartphones, they're the ones who are all fucked up. So
also could be very intelligent, compassionate people who are very engaged in the world too.
No, I'm not saying that. I
don't know if I endorse those statements.
Well, there's going to be a higher percentage of kids that got fucked up because they had smartphones.
It goes all over the place, man. I can tell you my personal experience with having 2 teenage kids. Their friends are some of the smartest, most together, most compassionate people I've ever met.
I didn't say they were.
They're way better than most 30-year-olds that I know.
I didn't say that they were dumb or narcissists. I'm speaking more to like social awkwardness.
I agree with that, but I mean, I've never been more impressed with a generation. They're way better than we were when their age. They're way more engaged. They care more.
Scott, we were rad.
They're more compassionate than we were. No, we were pretty harsh back when we were teenagers.
Well, yeah, we were rad.
It was like we were just freaking giving people shit all the time, and we were just like, sarcastic.
Dude, I
these people are like way more compassionate than we were. They're way more sort of engaged. They genuinely care about people's feelings. I mean, those are things that we didn't give a shit about at all when we were kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, dude, I went to Catholic school. Like,
that's right.
Dude, mockery is my love language.
That's true. But I mean,
do you think that
when I was in high school, it was just about being a smart ass? You know what I mean?
Totally. Well, that's why we played music with attitude.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That was my.
This establishment bunch of dudes that don't know what they're doing, and the teacher's fucking idiot. And I'm just gonna do. You don't understand. I'm gonna rock. You know, it's funny.
Yeah.
I was talking to you earlier before we started recording that I just discovered the first Firehouse record.
Yeah,
I just went back and revisited it because I had when I was a kid, but I hadn't listened to it since.
Rest in peace, CJ Snare. Dude, I can't believe.
Fabulous singer. Bill Leverty, by the way, the guitar player in that band is way better than I remember him being.
And his tone on that first Firehouse album is cute.
But there's a song on there called "Rock on the Radio." And it reminded me, I was listening to it, I'm like, man, this really encapsulates what it felt like to be like 15 or like a teenager in the early 90s before the grunge thing happened. That sort of rock on the radio, man.
Dude, killer
what do
riff
you do? I'm
going
to rock. And we're going to rock and be rebellious and we're going to party and have fun and we're going to rock. That was like a thing in the air in the 90, 91.
Well, dude, when we were kids, we were optimistic. You know,
we also kind of carve our own path. It was about being individuals. It was about sort of like,
and we were
anti-establishment to a degree, but not like in a toxic way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and dude, I think I'm glad that younger generations like care more about not traumatizing each other.
Yeah.
But I also sometimes fear if there's, the lack of socializing is leading to some hypersensitivity sometimes.
I 100% agree with that. And also, being able to curate your reality also means you never come out against views that are different than yours.
Right.
Which makes it very difficult for you to build up the skin that you need, like the calluses that you need to sort of like handle someone else's opinion that's antithetical to your own.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
As long as someone's not,
But we were getting in fist fights, literal and physical ones.
Well, just because why not?
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not advocating for that.
You. It was like that kind of, that was like, way more pugilistic back when we were kids. You know what I mean?
Dude, like, well, but we also weren't afraid of like that other kid pulling a gun.
That's true. Well, not till later. Like what time in high school that was. There's school shootings when we were in high school.
Well, I mean, I remember like nightclub shootings when I was old enough to be in clubs, like when I was like 17 and older.
Well, nowadays you could be word of shot.
I should
anywhere.
say when I was old enough to sneak into clubs, which probably doesn't happen anymore either. But
that song, I was trying to say that it just brought me back to like I remember what it was like in like 90, 91. That sort of like we're gonna rock, and this is that.
Absolutely.
And on the radio, like rock on the radio, dude. I'm cranking the radio. I'm driving down the street with my car, just like cranking this song, and this is awesome. And that's something that is not there anymore. That doesn't exist.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And
kids aren't out like it's not. They're not out with their droogs.
Yeah, you know what's funny?
Having adventures.
Actually, I saw this thing too because I guess they just remastered the Van Halen album for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, and they have a live show that they did in Dallas that they're remastered and doing a Blu-ray of. And I saw one of the tracks, they had Pound Cake, and they put it online. Is like when they released it, but they had this live show, and it's like 91, early 91, and there was like 30,000 people like just in this like city. They're like basically downtown Dallas, and that's one little corner. And I remember looking out like, dude, I remember what that was like. Dude, Van Halen's playing down there. Let's go, freaking do it.
Yeah,
man.
right.
There was like, yeah, we're gonna rock, and everyone was just like, it was such a cool vibe. It was like we're just gonna go rock. Well, what are we doing today? I'm gonna go rock.
I'm gonna rock.
You know what I mean? It's like that was something that was in the air. You know what I mean? And it was
totally.
And it's something that is not here anymore. And
so so that brings to mind a couple of the like best moments from my last week of work. Okay,
so the one that we just had, you mean? Or,
this last week, man. Some of the cool things that
I thought you mean last, like going in the future, like in 2074.
Oh no! I know. I mean, since we're recording this on what is my Sunday.
Okay. Your holy day, as they say.
Yes, right. My unholy day.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, I had one student who had never heard Rainbow in the Dark before.
Wow. Okay.
So I got to play it for him for the first time.
Yeah.
And we watched the music video, right? So there's there's Ronnie James Dio on.
Is that the one
roof.
with the sketchy dudes like chasing the chick up the stairs?
the sketchy dudes like there's the stalker guy in like London, and he's like,
and they're on the roof though, like him and Vivian Campbell.
Well,
and
so Ronnie is on the roof.
Oh, okay.
Rocking.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right, and then the creepy guy is stalking this woman through the streets of I imagine London.
Yeah.
Right, and then he follows her until she gets into the kind of the red light district.
Okay.
And she goes into like an adult store. Okay.
Okay.
And so he's like getting ready to like follow her in there. He starts to go up the staircase. And then Vivian Campbell and Jimmy Bain rock him all the way down the stairs.
As they do.
Yeah, and then she's with them, right? So basically she went into the adult bookstore to enlist the services
of Vivian Campbell
and Jimmy Bain.
I gotta believe Vinny Appice was around somewhere just doing
but he couldn't come down the staircase because he's Vinny Appice, right? And so so Ronnie's on the roof, and then Vivian and Jimmy just rock him all the way back down the stairs and back into the street, and they just rock him all the way like away from the woman. So now she's been rocked to safety.
Yes. As Dio did back in the day.
Yes, right, totally. So and then when he was leaving his lesson, I could hear him blasting Rainbow in the Dark in his car on the drive home.
Nice.
So I texted him. I was like, dude, I heard you blasting that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
He's like, yeah, I fucking love it. I'm gonna listen to it again.
Go
check
check that whole record out, man.
Yeah. So you know what? It's 2024, and you know one thing I love about my job is that I still have moments like that.
Yeah, and there's people who are open to that too. There's something lost though. There's like a bittersweetness to like remembering that, like what it was like in 1991, like that before the grunge thing happened, like right when it was still like the optimism that rock and roll was going to continue.
Yeah,
you know
I mean we've discussed the horrors of the grunge apocalypse,
but there was a thing in the air. If you weren't there, you don't know what I'm talking about. There was like a thing in the air about rock and roll.
There's a buzz and electricity.
Something about driving down the street with rock cranking on your car.
I mean, it didn't hurt that I was a teenager.
Yeah, I guess too. I mean, same thing. Yeah, we were teenagers back then. But there was like a thing about that, you know, and that was something that you could tell. If you go watch a movie like Point Break, like something came out at the same time. There's like that.
Oh, I know a guy who was in Point Break.
But it's not that same kind of. There's like the rock, like Rat was on the soundtrack. You know, like there's a rock thing to it. You know, there's
dude,
like,
no doubt.
There's rock and roll all over that whole. I mean, look at Bill and Ted. That came out at the same time, around that same time too.
Dude, Bill and Ted and Wayne's World just captures the zeitgeist
of that time. Yeah, and then looking at where rock is in 2024. In comparison, it's like that's if you think that we're just like a one-trick pony on this podcast, you have no idea what we've lost.
Oh, so you know,
and I'm trying to explain what we've lost. You know what I mean?
I'll encapsulate it. Okay?
Yeah.
So there's I've been wanting to cite this for a while. So there's an interview on ultimateguitar.com with Desmond Child. So for those of you who don't know, Desmond Child is a prolific songwriter
and producer extraordinaire. Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
So he worked with like everybody back in the day, but notably he did a lot of work with Kiss.
Yep.
You know, who
also produced like Rat, Bon Jovi. I mean,
that's right. He co-wrote with John Bon Jovi.
Aerosmith.
Yep, Aerosmith. That's right. And Joan Jett.
Yep.
Alice Cooper.
Yep.
So he's talking about. So here's a quote from Desmond Child, and this just really encapsulated all of it for me. Quote, I always say that Paul Stanley taught me how to write stadium anthems, quote, the Kiss way. And there are rules. The protagonist, the lead singer, his story, he can never be the victim.
Uh-huh.
He will always be the winner. And so the music has to uplift with that at all times. And when the chorus is hit, you just want to rise up and put your fist in the air, right? Mm-hmm. So, then he goes on, I'll paraphrase.
Raise your fist and yell, man. That's that.
Yeah, and then Desmond Child goes on to say that when he co-wrote with, John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora and Steven Tyler, Joe Perry, Alice Cooper, Joan Jett, he says, quote, I brought all of that know-how that Paul Stanley gave me. Yeah. So there it is, right? So, the protagonist of your song can never be the victim.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of value to that, right?
I remember later in that interview too, he was saying that the guitar players in the grunge era weren't even real guitar players. That they were like fake guitar players basically. And
really, he says that in the same interview.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that interview or not, but I saw another interview and he said they could barely play.
Right.
Of course, they could barely play. That was the thing. That became a thing for a while. That was cool to not be able to play. Which is weird.
Yeah.
So, but it was very antithetical to like when we were kids, like that 90-91 period where it wasn't cool to not be great. It was cool to be great. It wasn't cool to suck.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And be good.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something that was lost too. So anyway, on that bittersweet note, we probably need to start wrapping up.
Yeah. So one last anecdote from last week. Okay.
How about an antidote? Do you have an antidote from last week?
An antidote
for the poison that you've given me in my coffee, apparently.
Oh no! Why would I make an antidote for that?
Ha 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 ha.
So
Dr. Jones. Nope.
Yeah. So I had a student. So I had a younger student. Well, like teenage student. like he finally discovered that like various like frequencies, like various transmissions from various other electronic devices will go through your pickups and out your amplifier.
Okay, yeah.
You know, it's like
picking up radio waves and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like I think it was his phone. He's like, dude, if I hold my phone next to the pickups, I hear it come out the amp. It makes this sound.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, dude, yeah, absolutely.
You know
like,
what it sounds like? Whoa!
Dude, I knew it was about to happen, man. What are you doing to me? Whoa!
What are you watching? I understand what's coming through your phone. My God,
I don't know what that reference could possibly. I had another student actually. Big shout out to my good friend Dan. He suggested that we make that in joke a regular part of the podcast. It seems
so
like
far it's sticking. Yes.
It's organic.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very tiny
much
organ.
like Louis Shortstad. It's organic.
So anyway, so he mentions. So I'm like, yeah, dude. I remember, when I was about your age. I found out that like my TV controller, if I pressed the buttons, I could hear the beep 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 come through the, and of course that led to, well, have you ever heard a song called Pound Cake by Van Halen? Well, the whole intro is Eddie like running a power drill through his pickups. And he's like, dude, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, go home and listen to it. It's the best.
I can't believe no one remembers that. My God, that was a huge song. I mean,
he's like a young teenager.
Okay,
he would know. So
I guess so, yeah.
So in a week of work, I got to show Rainbow in the Dark to somebody for the first time. And I turned somebody on to new Van Halen stuff via a power drill.
Yeah, new from '91, but yeah, I mean,
whatever. It's Eddie.
I'm really happy that they're remastering those records, though. That's really cool. I want to hear like a new remastered version.
Yeah, you said For Unlawful.
Well, I know they redid all the Sammy stuff. So they did 5150, OU812, For Unlawful Chronology, and Balance. I mean, Balance is pretty. To me, that feels very modern.
Is good.
Very modern for production.
It's a remaster.
Yeah, but I'm sure they did. And then, but I think 5150 and OU812 definitely could use a remaster. They were very like 80s sounding.
It'll probably help for these like Apple lossless, like when you're streaming it off Apple Music.
Well, I'm just very happy that they did that, and that's really cool.
Totally, finds new ears, man.
Yeah, exactly.
So
great stuff, man. Dude, seeing that video, that concert from like '91, and like looking at the crowd, like, dude, I was that guy. I mean, I was younger. I was probably like mid-teens, but like still, I remember like that was, dude. I would have been that guy in the crowd, like going, yeah, you know what I mean? And that there's like a happiness and a joy and a surrender and an excitement about that whole vibe that just didn't exist. Like 3 years later, it didn't exist. You know what I mean? And by the not to lament it too much, but it's just it was like one, I was very happy to see it, and I remembered those days, and then I instantly hit with that wave of pain, like
Well, hey man, again, my students are fired up about Dio and Van Halen, and I don't get any requests for Smells Like Teen Spirit.
So yes, and that's a good place to wrap up right there. Yes, Pound Cake and Rainbow in the Dark are 1,000 times better than anything like that.
Yes.
For sure. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to the Rock Guitar Confidential podcast with Ryan and Scott. Please make sure to rate and subscribe to this podcast. And for information on Ryan and I and our band and our podcast and our other activities and our social media, please visit our band website at www.xagesband.com, and then make sure to either subscribe to our social medias and just follow everything we do.
Yep, that's right. And that web address is www.xaegisband.com.
Thank you so much for listening.
Peace.